Hello, my queen. Welcome to Inner Empire, my queen, the space where we flesh out the lies that dim your light and reveal the truths that nourish your essence. Today, we address an insidious lie, the idea that to know who you are, you must compare yourself to others. Modern culture glorifies rankings, social media, league tables, and constant competition. You were taught very early to measure your worth through accomplishments, appearance, popularity, or the performance of others. Likes, followers, degrees, promotions, everything becomes a yardstick to define you. My queen, this lie creates an immense internal price: envy, shame, agitation, and a constant feeling of never being enough. You start scrutinizing others' lives, analyzing their successes and failures to calibrate your own existence. Every comparison becomes a distorting mirror, where you see your inadequacies amplified and your successes trivialized. Gradually, you stop living your life fully and become a spectator of others. Comparison pushes you to judge your body, your style, your professional and personal choices. You notice their successes and minimize your own. You try to imitate what you see, but you always feel behind, inadequate, insufficient. You observe their lives on the surface and forget your depth. Psychology shows that chronic comparison generates stress, anxiety, and a sense of emptiness. Science confirms that social media amplifies this dissatisfaction by artificially stimulating reward circuits, thus reinforcing dependence on external approval and the gaze of others. Daily, you may feel a mixture of jealousy and guilt. Every notification becomes an invisible measure of your inadequacy. You find yourself criticizing yourself internally, comparing even when you are happy or proud of yourself. This creates constant mental agitation, an inner noise that never lets you breathe, nor savor your victories. Comparison becomes an unconscious habit, an automatic reflex that eats away at your self-esteem, prevents you from being fully present, and cuts you off from inner peace. The Bible reminds us that each person has a singular vocation and that God created each with a unique purpose. As it is written in Psalm 139, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that full well." Constant comparison denies this singularity and prevents you from receiving the value that God gives you from birth. The story of Kendall Jenner perfectly illustrates this modern trap. Raised in the spotlight, in a family where successes are scrutinized publicly, she grew up constantly comparing herself to her sisters and her peers in the world of fashion and media. She often felt the anxiety of never being enough and the pressure to perform to validate her place. Kendall felt judged on her appearance, her professional choices, and even her personality, as if every gesture had to be measured to prove her worth. She often had to struggle with the impression that her accomplishments were never sufficient and that her value depended entirely on the perception of others. Her life shows that living by comparison can transform success into a source of anxiety. To be continued in Part 2. Welcome back to Inner Empire. My queen, when you constantly measure yourself against others, you lose contact with yourself. You forget your passions, your talents, and your own rhythm. Comparison is a silent thief of joy, clarity, and inner freedom. It pushes you to run a race that is not yours and to neglect the construction of your inner empire. It creates constant agitation, permanent dissatisfaction, and a dependence on the gaze and validation of others. It weakens your confidence, your authenticity, and your well-being. It makes you forget that your value is intrinsic and not conditioned by the accomplishments or lives of others. It feeds envy and jealousy and turns you away from what is truly essential. My queen, to get out of the trap, you must first refocus your gaze on yourself. Recognize that your value is not conditioned by that of others. The Bible teaches us that everyone has a singular vocation and a unique design, independent of human judgment. As written in Ephesians 2 verse 10, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." This verse reminds us that every life is intentional and precious, and that everyone's value does not depend on a ranking or external measure. When you realize this, you begin to free your mind. The singularity of your path then becomes a strength and not a point of stress. Modern psychology confirms that chronic comparison generates malaise, but offers powerful tools. The practice of daily gratitude is essential. Writing down 3 successes or moments you are proud of every evening reinforces your self-esteem and reduces dependence on the gaze of others. Self-compassion is another key. Learn to speak to yourself with gentleness. Positive psychology also encourages defining measurable personal goals, independent of external standards. By integrating these practices, you rebuild a healthy relationship with yourself, and the lives of others stop dictating your happiness. Cognitive science shows that social approval dependency stimulates reward circuits, creating an addiction. Neuroscientists indicate that focusing on your own goals triggers natural dopamine and feeds real satisfaction. Practices like mindfulness meditation, breathing, or yoga help reconnect your attention to yourself. The habit of noting every personal progress gradually reorganizes your neural circuits so that well-being depends on you. To strengthen your freedom, practice powerful daily affirmations. My worth does not depend on the gaze of others. I am complete and worthy as I am. Conscious repetition modifies neural circuits and decreases sensitivity to judgment. Combine affirmations with journaling and create a vision board centered on your own goals and values. These tools anchor you in your inner empire and help you celebrate every stage of your life without external validations. Readings like The Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, and Self-Compassion are allies. These resources combine spiritual wisdom and applied psychology to guide you to a life centered on you and not on the mirror of others. My queen, surround yourself with inspiring models. Learn to measure your progress with your own criteria. The Bible, psychology, and science all converge. Freedom and peace are born when you start living fully yourself. Remember, my queen, freedom begins in the inner space where you choose truth over lies. See you soon on Inner Empire, where we build a solid and free inner kingdom.